Kira's phone buzzed with a message that made her blood run cold. "Your boyfriend isn't who he says he is. Check the news." She was standing in her aunt's kitchen, watching through the window as Tehan played in the snow with her little cousins, their laughter echoing through the quiet Chicago neighborhood. He looked so normal, so gentle, helping 7-year-old Marcus build a snowman, while her family watched from inside with warm smiles. But the news article on her phone told a different story. A photo of a man in an expensive suit leaving a downtown building, surrounded by other men in dark clothing. The headline read, "Alleged crime boss spotted at high-profile business meeting." The man in the photo looked exactly like the fake boyfriend she'd hired for $5. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through more articles, each one painting a picture of someone dangerous, someone powerful, someone who definitely didn't need to earn $5 pretending to be someone's Christmas date. Through the window, she watched him lift her cousin onto his shoulders, his smile genuine and warm. This was the same man who'd charmed her grandmother, who'd listened patiently to her uncle's stories, who'd made her feel less alone for the first time in months. But if the articles were true, then everything she thought she knew about him was a lie. Welcome to Korean Mafia lovers. This incredible story of unexpected love and dangerous secrets will keep you on the edge of your seat. Comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. She was not supposed to spend money on anything that wasn't rent, food, or bus fare, but Kira was staring at that post again anyway. Need a date for the holidays? Fake boyfriend service, $5 for one night. No strings, no kissing. Just cover. It was ridiculous, childish, dangerous, but the family group chat wouldn't stop. "Are you bringing someone this year? You're already 28. Everyone here already has someone, right? Everyone except her. Christmas in Chicago meant 2 jobs, overdue bills, and a family that thought love was proof of worth. Kira worked as a clerk at a convenience store during the day and did shifts at a laundromat at night. There was no time or energy for dates, much less a relationship. But this year, for the first time, she was tired of feeling like the lonely niece. Sighing, she took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and typed, "Need a boyfriend for one night, Christmas dinner at my aunt's house. No one creepy, just someone who can smile, make conversation, and pretend to like dessert. I have $5, I'm serious." Half an hour later, the notification appeared. "I accept. Call me Noah. Send address, time, and dress code." Kira bit her lip. Noah. It had to be a fake name, of course, but the profile picture showed only a dark suit on a hanger. No face. She almost gave up. Almost deleted the message. But then her aunt sent a voice message teasing and judging about her lack of a boyfriend. And Kira decided, one night, that's all. On Christmas night, snow was falling heavily when someone knocked on the door of her aunt's house in a simple but tidy neighborhood. The family was gathered. Cousins, children running around, the smell of turkey and loud laughter. Kira was holding a plastic cup in her hands, nervous when the door opened. He walked in. Tall. Dark grey suit, open overcoat revealing an impeccable white shirt. Black hair styled back. Broad shoulders, straight posture. The kind of man who seemed to belong in a mirrored building downtown, not at a cramped dinner in a row house. "Hi," he said, his voice calm with a slight accent. "Kira." She almost forgot to answer. "That's me," she swallowed hard. "You're the $5 fake boyfriend?" One corner of his mouth lifted. "For today, I am." He extended his hand. "You can call me Tehan." It wasn't Noah, and Kira realized without knowing why that this was his real name. Tehan entered the house as if he was used to any scenario, from the most luxurious to the simplest. He didn't snub anything. Didn't find anything strange. He greeted the aunts politely, laughed at the uncle's jokes, listened to the stories from the uncle who always exaggerated. Kira watched, surprised. He held her hand discreetly while her aunt asked, "So how did you two meet?" Kira choked, but he didn't hesitate. "She served me coffee on a bad day," he replied calmly. And the day got better from then on. Kira's eyes met his for a second longer than they should have. Beneath the performance, there was something real in that look. Something tired. Something lonely. He ate little but complimented everything. He played with the children, let them paint little golden stars on his jacket cuff with markers. He laughed softly, in a way that seemed new to him. Kira noticed. This man wasn't just acting, he was resting there. After dinner, in the cold backyard lit by cheap string lights, Kira and Taehan were alone for a moment. "You're good at this," she commented, "pretending you know me, that you're part of all this. It's not that hard," he said, looking at the window where her family was laughing, crowded together. "You don't lie about who you are. Just go with the flow." "And you?" she ventured. "Who are you, really?" His look changed for a second, that same brightness as when she'd put the scarf around his neck, not knowing he existed. A shadow passed through his eyes, but he deflected elegantly. "Someone who doesn't really fit with family Christmases." She laughed, but a hint of curiosity remained. When he left later, Kira tried to pay. He gently pushed her hand back. "Keep your $5. Consider it. A night off for me, too." "Are you feeling sorry for me?" she teased. "No." He breathed deeply, looking at her with unexpected seriousness. "I'm feeling grateful." And that's how for $5 she couldn't even pay. Kira bought a space in the life of a man who would completely change hers. The following days brought spontaneous messages. "Your aunt makes the best rice with raisins I've ever eaten." "Is that cousin of yours who screams playing video games still alive?" "Did you eat today?" They began to see each other gradually. Coffee after work, short walks in the snow, conversations about movies and mundane things. Kira didn't know where he lived, what he really did for work, who he hung out with. He only said, "I solve problems for difficult people." She found it strange, but didn't insist. The feeling didn't come quickly. It grew slowly. A comfort here, a smile there, a silence that didn't bother. Taehan listened, paid attention, remembered small details. Kira, used to being the one who endures everything, began to relax beside him, until his real world broke into hers. It was a Tuesday evening in early January when Kira first noticed something was off. She was closing up the convenience store when she saw Taehan's car parked across the street, a sleek black sedan that definitely cost more than her annual salary. But he wasn't alone. 2 other men sat in the car with him, both wearing dark suits and serious expressions. Even from a distance she could see they were having an intense conversation. Taehan's posture was different too, straighter, more commanding than the gentle man who'd helped her cousin with homework just days before. When he noticed her looking, his entire demeanor shifted. He said something quick to the men, got out of the car, and walked toward her with that familiar warm smile. "Hey," he said, as if nothing unusual had happened. "Thought I'd pick you up from work." "Who were those guys?" Kira asked, glancing back at the car where the 2 men were now looking at their phones, pointedly not watching them. "Business associates," Taehan replied smoothly. "Nothing interesting." But Kira had grown up in Chicago. She knew the difference between regular business associates and the kind of men who wore expensive suits and had that particular way of scanning their surroundings. Those men looked like they were used to trouble. "What kind of business?" she pressed. Taehan's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Import and export. Very boring stuff." He changed the subject quickly, asking about her day, complimenting her new earrings, making her laugh with a story about the elderly woman who'd tried to teach him to knit at the community center. By the time they reached her apartment, Kira had almost forgotten about the men in the car. Almost. Over the next few weeks, she started noticing things. The way Taehan always seemed to know when her shifts ended, even though she'd never given him her schedule. How he never seemed to worry about money, despite claiming to work in import and export. The expensive watch he wore but tried to hide under his sleeve. The way he sometimes got phone calls that made his entire body tense, and he'd step away to take them in a language she didn't recognize. But then he'd come back and be completely present with her, asking about her dreams, listening to her complain about difficult customers, bringing her favorite coffee without being asked. The contradiction was confusing and increasingly concerning. The breaking point came on a snowy Saturday night. They were walking back from a movie when Taehan's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his face went pale. "I have to take this," he said, stepping into an alley between 2 buildings. Kira waited on the sidewalk, but she could hear his voice, low and urgent. He was speaking in what sounded like Korean, his tone completely different from any way she'd ever heard him speak. There was authority in his voice, command, and something that sounded almost threatening. When he came back, he was trying to smile, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Fine," he said quickly. "Just work stuff." At 10 p.m. on a Saturday. "Import and export never sleeps," he joked, but it fell flat. They walked the rest of the way to her apartment in silence. At her door, Tehan kissed her forehead gently, something that had become their routine, but she could feel the distance he was creating. "Tehan," she said as he started to leave. "Whatever's going on, you can tell me." He stopped, his back still to her. For a moment she thought he might actually open up, but when he turned around, his expression was carefully neutral. "There's nothing going on, Kira, I promise." But promises, she was learning, could be just as fake as $5 boyfriends. The next morning, she was having coffee with her cousin Jasmine when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Your boyfriend isn't who he says he is. Check the news." Kira stared at the message, her heart starting to race. Jasmine noticed her expression immediately. "What's wrong?" Jasmine asked, leaning over to look at the phone. "Probably just spam," Kira said, but her hands were shaking as she opened her news app. She didn't have to search long. The headline was right there on the local news section. "Alleged crime boss spotted at high-profile business meeting." The photo showed a man in an expensive suit, leaving a downtown building, surrounded by other men in dark clothing. The man looked exactly like Tehan. Kira's coffee cup slipped from her hands, shattering on the cafe floor. "Kira!" Jasmine grabbed napkins, but Kira was already scrolling through the article, her heart pounding. Sources close to the investigation say the man, identified only as T. Kim, is believed to be connected to several high-profile business deals with suspected ties to organized crime. Federal investigators have been monitoring his activities for months. The article was vague, full of alleged and suspected, but the photo was unmistakable. It was definitely Tehan. "I have to go," Kira said, standing abruptly. "Kira, what's going on? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I might have," she muttered, grabbing her coat and rushing out of the cafe. Her mind raced as she walked home. Everything started making sense now. The expensive car, the mysterious phone calls, the way he always seemed to have money but was vague about his work, the men in suits, the authority in his voice when he thought she couldn't hear. But it also made no sense at all. Why would someone involved in organized crime need to earn $5 as a fake boyfriend? Why would he spend weeks getting to know her family, playing with her cousins, bringing her coffee? Unless it was all part of some elaborate scheme she couldn't understand. By the time she reached her apartment, Kira had worked herself into a panic. She tried calling Tehan, but it went straight to voicemail. She paced her small living room, looking at the article again and again, trying to convince herself she was wrong. But the photo didn't lie. Her phone rang, and she jumped. It was Tehan. "Hey," he said, his voice warm and familiar. "I was thinking we could grab dinner tonight. There's this new place I wanted to try." "I need to see you," Kira said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Now." There was a pause. "Is everything okay?" "Just come over, please. I'll be right there." 20 minutes later, there was a knock on her door. Kira opened it to find Tehan standing there with a concerned expression and a bag of her favorite takeout. "I brought food," he said. "You sounded upset." For a moment, looking at his kind eyes and gentle smile, she almost convinced herself she'd been wrong. This was the man who'd spent Christmas with her family, who'd listened to her grandmother's stories, who'd made her feel less alone. But then she remembered the photo, the article, the mysterious phone calls. "We need to talk," she said, stepping aside to let him in. Tehan set the takeout bag on her small kitchen counter and turned to face her, his expression shifting from concern to something more guarded as he took in her serious tone. "What's wrong?" he asked, but there was a new wariness in his voice. Kira pulled up the news article on her phone and held it out to him. "Want to explain this?" She watched his face carefully as he looked at the screen. For just a moment his mask slipped completely. She saw recognition, resignation, and something that looked almost like relief. Then his expression went carefully blank. "That's not me," he said, handing the phone back to her. "Don't lie to me, Tehan." Her voice was steadier than she felt. "I've been noticing things for weeks. The expensive car, the mysterious phone calls, the way you always seem to have money but won't talk about your work. He was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. When he spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. "You should stay away from me, Kira. That's not an answer. It's the only answer that matters." He moved toward the door, but she stepped in front of him. "No. You don't get to do that. You don't get to spend weeks becoming part of my life, meeting my family, making me care about you, and then just disappear when things get complicated. You don't understand what you're asking. Then explain it to me." Taehan closed his eyes and leaned against her door. When he opened them again, she saw exhaustion there, and something that looked like fear. "The man in that photo," he said quietly. "That's who I really am, T. Kim, Taehan Kim, and everything you're probably thinking about what that means is likely true." Kira felt the floor shift beneath her feet, but she forced herself to stay calm. "What exactly does it mean? It means I run a business that operates outside the law. It means I have enemies who wouldn't hesitate to hurt anyone close to me. It means that every moment you spend with me puts you in danger." "Are you telling me you're actually—" She couldn't bring herself to say the words. "A criminal? Yes?" His voice was matter-of-fact, but she could see the pain in his eyes. "I've been trying to figure out how to tell you, or if I should just disappear. But I've been selfish. These past few weeks with you have been the most normal I've felt in years." Kira sank onto her couch, trying to process what he was telling her. The fake boyfriend thing. Why would you need to do that if you're— what you are? A small, sad smile crossed his face. "Because even criminals get lonely at Christmas. And because $5 was the first honest transaction I'd made in months. You weren't trying to get something from me, or use me for connections. You just needed someone to help you get through one dinner with your family. So this whole time, you've been lying to me. About what I do for work. Yes. About everything else?" He shook his head. "The way I feel about you, the way your family made me feel welcome, how much I've enjoyed just talking with you about movies and books and stupid things that don't matter. All of that was real." Kira looked at him, really looked at him. The expensive clothes, the confident way he carried himself, the subtle authority she'd noticed but ignored. It all made sense now. "What kind of business?" she asked. "The kind you don't want to know details about." "Try me." Taehan was quiet for a long moment. "Import and export wasn't entirely a lie. We move things that other people can't or won't move legally. We provide protection for businesses that can't rely on the police. We solve problems that the legal system can't or won't solve. You're talking about the Mafia. That's a very dramatic word for what is essentially a business that operates outside traditional legal frameworks." Despite everything, Kira almost smiled. "You're really going to try to make organized crime sound like a startup?" "I'm trying to help you understand that it's not like the movies. I don't go around hurting innocent people. Most of what I do is paperwork and meetings and making sure various business interests don't conflict with each other. And the other part," his expression darkened, "the other part is why you need to stay away from me." Kira stood up and walked to her window, looking out at the quiet street where she'd grown up. Everything looked the same, but she felt like her entire world had shifted. "How long have you been doing this?" she asked without turning around. "Since I was 22, my family. Let's just say I inherited the business. And you've never wanted to do anything else?" "Every day." The honesty in his voice made her turn around. "But it's not the kind of job you can just quit. There are people depending on me, obligations I can't walk away from. What about what you want?" "What I want doesn't matter. It matters to me." The words hung in the air between them. Taehan's expression softened, and for a moment he looked like the man who'd played with her cousins in the snow. "Kira," he said gently, "I care about you more than I've cared about anyone in a very long time. That's exactly why I can't keep seeing you. My world is dangerous and I won't let you get hurt because of me. Don't I get a say in that decision?" "Not about this." Her phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it and felt her blood run cold. "He's not the only one watching you now." She showed Taehan the message, and his entire demeanor changed instantly. The gentle man disappeared, replaced by someone hard and focused. "Pack a bag," he said, his voice sharp with command. "Now." "What? Why?" "Because someone knows about us, and they're using you to get to me." He was already moving toward her window, checking the street below. "We need to get you somewhere safe." "Taehan," You're scaring me." He turned to her and she saw something in his eyes that terrified her. Not anger, but fear. Real, genuine fear. "Good," he said. "You should be scared, because this is what my world looks like and now you're part of it whether we want you to be or not." As if to emphasize his point, her phone buzzed again. "Tell your boyfriend we want to meet. Tonight. Come alone, or she gets hurt." Tehan read the message over her shoulder, and she felt his entire body tense. "Who are they?" Kira whispered. "People who think they can use you to control me." His voice was deadly quiet. "They're about to learn how wrong they are." "Absolutely not," Kira said, watching Tehan pace her small living room like a caged animal. "You are not going to meet them alone. This isn't a negotiation." His voice carried an authority she'd never heard before, the voice of someone used to being obeyed without question. "You're going to pack a bag, and I'm going to take you somewhere safe. Then I'm going to handle this." "Handle it how?" The look he gave her made her stomach drop. "You don't want to know." "Stop treating me like I'm helpless." Kira stood up, frustration overriding her fear. "These people are threatening me because of you. I deserve to know what's happening." Tehan stopped pacing and turned to face her fully. For the first time since she'd known him, he looked every inch the dangerous man the news article had described. "Fine," he said. "You want to know? There's a group trying to move in on territory that's been mine for 5 years. They've been testing boundaries, seeing how far they can push before I push back. Using you is their way of forcing my hand." "What do they want?" "Control of the shipping routes through the port. It's worth millions of dollars a year, and they think they can take it from me." Kira felt dizzy. "Millions of dollars? Welcome to my world, Kira. Everything is high stakes, and everyone is expendable, including me." The question hung in the air between them. Tehan's expression softened slightly. "Not to me," he said quietly. "Never to me. That's why you need to let me handle this." "And what happens to us after you handle it?" "There is no us after this." The words came out flat, final. "I should never have let it go this far. I should have walked away after Christmas dinner. But you didn't. No, I didn't. And now you're in danger because I was selfish." Kira's phone buzzed again. This time it was a photo. A picture of her walking out of the convenience store, taken from across the street. The message that followed made her blood run cold. 1 hour, Millennium Park, by the Bean. Come alone, or we start with her family. "They know where I work," she whispered, showing Tehan the message. "They know about my family." She watched something dangerous flicker across his face. "Give me your phone." "What?" "Your phone. Now." She handed it over, and he quickly typed a response. "Deal. 1 hour." "Are you insane?" Kira grabbed for the phone, but he held it out of reach. "I'm ending this before it gets worse. By walking into what's obviously a trap. By doing what I should have done weeks ago, keeping you out of my world." Tehan moved toward the door, but Kira stepped in front of him again. "If you walk out that door, I'm calling the police. And tell them what? That your fake boyfriend is actually a crime boss who's about to meet with other criminals. You think that ends well for anyone? I think it ends better than you getting yourself killed. Why do you care?" The question came out harsher than he'd intended, and she could see him immediately regret it. "Because I love you, you idiot." The words hung in the air between them. Kira hadn't meant to say it, hadn't even fully admitted it to herself until that moment. But seeing him preparing to walk into danger, possibly to his death, had stripped away all her defenses. Tehan's expression went through several changes: surprise, pain, something that might have been joy, and finally, resignation. "That's exactly why I have to go," he said softly. "Because you love me, and I love you. And that makes you the most dangerous weakness I've ever had." Love isn't supposed to be a weakness. In my world it is. He moved toward her, cupping her face gently in his hands. "Kira, listen to me. After tonight, you need to forget you ever knew me. Change your phone number, maybe even move if you can. Tell your family we broke up. Live your life." "What about your life?" "My life was decided a long time ago." He kissed her then, soft and desperate and final. When he pulled away, there were tears in his eyes. "I'm sorry," he whispered, "for all of it. You deserved better than this." He was at the door when Kira made her decision. "If you're going, I'm going with you." Absolutely not. They want to meet you because of me. That makes this my problem too. Kira, no. Her voice was firm, stronger than she felt. Hayu said love makes me your weakness? Well, it goes both ways. You're mine too, and I'm not letting you face this alone. You don't understand what you're asking. Then explain it to me on the way. Taihan stared at her for a long moment, and she could see him weighing options, calculating risks. If you come with me, he said finally, you do exactly what I say, when I say it. No questions, no arguments. Your life might depend on it. Understood. And after tonight, regardless of what happens, we're done. I won't let you get pulled deeper into this world. Kira nodded, even though the words felt like a knife to her chest. Then let's go, Taihan said, but first I need to make a call. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number, speaking rapidly in Korean. Kira couldn't understand the words, but she could hear the authority in his voice, the way he was clearly giving orders. When he hung up, he looked at her seriously. My people will be in position around the park. If things go wrong, they'll get you out. What about you? I'll handle myself. As they left her apartment, Kira realized that the man she'd fallen in love with was about to show her exactly who he really was, and she wasn't sure either of them would survive what came next. The drive to Millennium Park was silent, except for the soft hum of the car's heater and the occasional crackle of Taihan's radio as his people checked in from their positions around the area. Kira watched the Chicago skyline blur past her window and tried to process everything that had happened in the last few hours. This morning, her biggest worry had been whether she could afford groceries this week. Now she was sitting in a car with a man she loved, who might be walking into a situation that could get them both killed. Second thoughts? Taihan asked quietly, glancing at her. About coming with you, no. She turned to look at him. About falling for a fake boyfriend who turned out to be a real crime boss? Maybe. Despite everything, he almost smiled. For what it's worth, falling for you wasn't part of the plan either. What was the plan? Show up, charm your family for a few hours, take my $5 and never see you again. What changed? Taihan was quiet for a moment. You did. The way you took care of everyone at that dinner, made sure your grandmother had her medicine, helped your cousin with his homework while the adults were talking. You were looking out for everyone else, but no one was looking out for you. So you decided to? I decided I wanted to try. They pulled into a parking spot near the park, and Kira could see the Bean, the massive reflective sculpture that was one of Chicago's most famous landmarks, gleaming under the streetlights. Even in winter, there were people around, tourists taking photos, and locals cutting through the park. Stay close to me, Taihan said as they got out of the car. If I tell you to run, you run. Don't look back, don't argue, just go. Where? There's a coffee shop 2 blocks north. My people will find you there. They walked toward the Bean, their breath visible in the cold air. Kira could see several men in dark coats positioned around the area. Taihan's people, she assumed, though they blended in well with the winter crowd. There, Taihan said quietly, nodding toward a group of 3 men standing near the sculpture. Even from a distance, Kira could tell they were dangerous. They had the same controlled way of moving that she'd noticed in Taihan, the same awareness of their surroundings. Remember, Taihan said, whatever happens, whatever you hear, you do exactly what I say. They approached the group slowly. The man in the center, older, with graying hair and an expensive coat, smiled when he saw them. Taihan, he said in accented English, good to see you again. Dmitri. Taihan's voice was neutral, professional. You wanted to talk. I did. Dmitri's eyes moved to Kira. And you brought your girlfriend. How domestic of you. She's not part of this. Oh, but she is. Dmitri stepped closer. She's the reason you're here, isn't she? The reason you're willing to negotiate instead of just handling things the way you usually do. Kira felt Taihan tense beside her. What do you want? Taihan asked. The same thing I've always wanted. Your shipping routes, your contacts at the port, your business. And in exchange? Your girlfriend stays safe. Your girlfriend's family stays safe. You get to walk away and start over somewhere else. That's generous of you. Dmitri shrugged. I'm not unreasonable. You've built something impressive here, but it's time for new management. And if I refuse, Then we see how much your girlfriend means to you." One of Dimitri's men moved slightly, and Kira saw the outline of a gun under his coat. Her heart started racing, but Tehan's hand found hers steady and warm. "You made a mistake," Tehan said quietly. "Oh? What's that?" "You assumed she was my weakness." Tehan squeezed Kira's hand once. A signal she somehow understood meant, "Be ready." And then everything happened at once. He moved faster than she'd ever seen anyone move, spinning toward Dimitri's man, while simultaneously pushing Kira behind the sculpture. She heard shouts, the sound of a struggle, and then Tehan's voice, sharp with command. "Run!" But instead of running, Kira found herself moving toward the sound of the fight. She couldn't see much in the darkness, but she could hear Tehan speaking rapidly in Korean, calling to his people, she realized. Within seconds, the area was swarming with men in dark coats. Dimitri and his people were surrounded, outnumbered, outmaneuvered. "You think this ends it?" Dimitri called out as Tehan's people restrained him. "There will be others." "Let them come," Tehan replied, "but they won't make the same mistake you did." "What mistake was that?" Tehan looked at Kira, who was standing a few feet away, breathing hard but unharmed, thinking that love makes you weak instead of stronger. Later, after Dimitri and his men had been taken away by Tehan's people, to where Kira didn't ask, they sat in his car in the empty parking lot. "Is it over?" she asked. "This part is. There might be others who try the same thing, but they'll be more careful now. They know I won't hesitate to protect what's mine, and what's yours." He turned to look at her, his expression serious. "You, if you want to be. I thought you said we were done after tonight. I thought I could walk away from you to keep you safe. But tonight showed me something." "What?" "That you're stronger than I gave you credit for, and that maybe love doesn't have to be a weakness." Kira reached for his hand. "So what happens now?" "Now you decide if you can live with who I really am. Not the fake boyfriend, not the man pretending to be normal. The real me, with all the complications that come with it." Kira thought about everything that had happened, the fear, the danger, the realization that the man she loved lived in a world she barely understood. But she also thought about the way he'd protected her, the way his people had moved to keep her safe, the way he'd been willing to give up everything rather than put her at risk. "I have conditions," she said. "Name them." "No more lies. If I'm part of your life, I need to know what that means." "Agreed. And my family stays out of it, completely. They'll be protected, but they'll never know why. And I want to do something useful. I don't want to just be the girlfriend who sits at home worrying." Tehan raised an eyebrow. "What did you have in mind?" "I don't know yet, but I'm good with people, good at organizing things. There has to be something I can do that doesn't involve the dangerous parts." "There might be." He was quiet for a moment. "Are you sure about this, Kira? Once you're really in my world, there's no going back to normal." "Normal is overrated," she said. "Besides, I paid $5 for a fake boyfriend and got a real one instead. That's the best deal I've ever made." Tehan laughed, the first genuine laugh she'd heard from him all night. "In that case," he said, "I think I owe you some change." "Keep it," Kira said, leaning over to kiss him. "Consider it an investment in our future." As they drove away from the park, Kira realized that her quiet, predictable life was over. But looking at the man beside her, dangerous, complicated, and completely devoted to her, she couldn't bring herself to regret it. After all, the best things in life were never safe. Years later, Kira stood in the kitchen of their penthouse apartment, watching the snow fall over Chicago's skyline. The city looked different from 30 floors up, but some things never changed, like the way her family still gathered for Christmas dinner, still asked too many questions, still made too much food. The difference was that now they adored Tehan. He'd become Uncle Tehan to her cousin's children, the man who remembered everyone's birthday and always brought the perfect gifts. Her grandmother still talked about what a good man she'd found, how lucky she was, if only they knew. "Ready?" Tehan asked, appearing in the doorway wearing a perfectly tailored suit and carrying a bottle of wine that probably cost more than most people's rent. Almost. Kira adjusted the necklace he'd given her, diamonds that definitely hadn't come from a regular jewelry store, though she'd learned not to ask too many questions about the origins of his gifts. Their life together had found its rhythm over the years. Tahan still ran his business, but he'd moved more toward the legitimate side of things. Real import-export, actual business consulting, investments that didn't require looking over his shoulder. Kira had found her place too, managing the charitable foundation they'd started, using her organizational skills to help people in ways that didn't involve anything illegal. It wasn't the life she'd imagined when she was working 2 jobs and eating crackers for lunch, but it was theirs. "Your aunt texted," Tahan said, showing her his phone. "She wants to know if we're bringing anyone special this year." Kira laughed. "She's been not so subtly hinting about grandchildren for months. What did you tell her?"